On to our next topic, and this is where we get into the fuck shit. I want to talk about Boozy and him being on Instagram Live. Now, be granted, he said this before, but he was talking about how, like, when his kids was 13, he got a grown woman to give his kids top and all that other stuff, and woo, that opened up a lot of shit in the black Twitter and like a lot of discuss. I feel like a lot of discussion can have off of that one Boozy segment, one Boozy Instagram live. So, Father, I'm gonna come to you first. What did you think about the whole thing with Boozy saying that he got his 13-year-old kids and nephews topped off by a grown woman?
Boosie, 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 Boosie. Oh my God. Yo, when I read that, I had like the biggest face palm imaginable. I had that Star Trek Captain Picard face palm. Like I had the Doc Rivers face. I had all of that in one. Cause, bruh, like let's be honest, Boosie, he's a very likable person. Like I think a lot of people like Boosie because the nigga's funny, the nigga wild. You know what I'm saying? He knows how to have a good time. But at the same time, that nigga has got to be the most ignorant motherfucker that is out here right now. And this really fucking proved it. Like, people were already pointing out the fact that if it was a girl, if he did that to his daughter, if someone said that they got their daughter head at 12 years old because they wanted them to have a good sexual experience, that person will get locked up immediately. So they acknowledge the double standard that went on with this type of situation. Another thing is that a lot of men that have sexual experiences that young, like they not really okay when you think about it. The only reason why like, you know, it's kind of like quote unquote accepted is because like men are indoctrinated to be hypersexualized, especially black males when they're coming up. Like, you know, when we was growing up, like the niggas, like we used to talk about, you know, fucking watching porn and shit. And, you know, like that's when you discovered, you know, naked women and women shaking their asses. Like that shit was hella glorified when it came to us as young black men. So when we grow up with that shit, you come to find out that that type of image that we see of women, you know, it translates to, you know, us being like toxic towards them. So we don't really value them as much. And that's why you get the whole fuck these hoes, these bitches and shit like that. So it does come from that like type of culture. So and as much as I like hated what Boosie said, it also didn't surprise me. Because Boosie admitted that he was, you know, he was a victim to that himself. You know, he was getting topped off that young, and you know, niggas in his hood was encouraging him, and you know, putting him in that type of predicament too, and kind of praising them for it. You know what I'm saying? So there is that in the community, and you know, the fact that he said that is bringing up a conversation that we kind of need to have when it comes to young boys, and you know, how women is shown to them at a young age. So Boosie, that ain't it, man. That really ain't it. I'm gonna use one of his quotes. Come on now, dog. Come on, man. You can't be doing that. That ain't it. That ain't it, bruh. And the one thing and the last thing I want to say about that whole situation is that there needs to be a consequence. There needs to be some type of consequence. Whether you want to lock him up, whether he something needs to happen to Boozy to make him understand that the shit he's doing is not okay. And we as black men, we need to kind of be the main people that's putting out that consequence. Because right now, as you know, there's a lot of stigma with black men and how we don't hold ourselves accountable and how all we're good for is hurting women and shit like that. So for once, I would like to see brothers really like come together and really check the fuck out of Boosie just to show that there are us out there that are serious about the shit and we not gonna condone somebody in our community, You know what I'm saying? Like perpetuating that type of mess. Because right now, like it's time to grow. You know what I'm saying? Black men, two black men just died, you know, for no apparent reason other than being black. So we gotta really like take this shit seriously so we can have a next generation that we can be proud of. Otherwise, the cycle is gonna continue, and more women is gonna get hurt by virtue of this culture that we perpetuate.
Tony, what you think?
Um, I think he shouldn't have said it on live. I know a lot of drug dealers and a lot of people in the hood been doing that for years since I was growing up. It's just one of them things that they put men on different pedestal from females because of sex.
Yeah.
I have I had got hit from a girl when I was young and she was like older than me, but not like the Boosie Joan. I think I was like 14, 15 years old. You know what I'm saying? But I knew drug dealers back in the day that, people from the streets that was drug dealers, that niggas that we knew we grew up with, they always do that. You know what I'm saying? To have this idea of thinking that, look at this, let's get them sexually active because sexually active is good for a man, but not good for a female type stuff. Which all that stuff is so wrong. But the day and age right now is different. And a lot of stuff that we used to do back in the days, you can't do that stuff no more. Um, he was wrong for doing that. Um, but a lot of people, I mean, a lot of older people are so stuck in their ways of thinking that that's how you make your control your son from being a man, from getting their head sucked from a female or paying a prostitute to knock them off for them to have sex when they 17, 18 years old. It's just too much. Because like you wouldn't do that for a female, but like I said earlier, like from male and female, when it comes to sex is more generated than men. For men that to have more sex, and then for female not to have sex, kind of thing with the little Ti joint with him and his daughter. You know what I'm saying? That was just overdoing stuff, you know. But there's the old ways need to stop.
Like I said, I thought this really opens up a lot about the way black community really thinks about sex. But let's be but before I'm not harping on the black community. Let's be real. This happens I'm pretty sure this happens in a lot of communities. I know growing up, some of the movies I've watched was like American Pie. A lot of those teenage movies where dudes are trying to get laid. I know Beavis and Butthead. Most of their most of their cartoons was them trying to score, or like Beavis and Butthead doing in America. They traveled all the way from like Cali to DC just to have sex with this one person and all that other stuff. Like it's in our comedies, it's sometimes in our livelihood. And yeah, I'm pretty sure like in all the communities, like it is like a double standard. But I've always said, and even though I'm not for it, what Boozy did, I've always said I feel like you do have to raise your women differently from your men. But when it comes to sex, I feel like I don't think, especially since we live longer, and let's be real, because back then, like the average age of some most people was like early 40s, maybe early, like late 40s, early 50s, and all that other stuff. So now, like, we got modern medicine and people are living longer. Like my aunt just lived until she was like 100. Rest in peace, Tia. But like we're in that age now where like you don't like kids don't really have to have sex at a young age to prove they manlyhood or all that other stuff. But I also want to say this. Because the first thing I did look on Twitter was like how many people was trying to use this as an agenda, and everybody did. And I try to put this as I'm trying this new thing where I'm putting it as a percentage because obviously, like Father done said, black people are not a monolith. So I try to put it in percentage. And when I did look through it, it's like half and half. Half the men was for it, half the men was against it. And but I felt like the other half that was against it, they wasn't getting it much. Um, they wasn't getting as much attention for instead of the people that was for it, because I'm pretty sure it's a more catches your eyes when people say and dudes are not checking for this, because I've had a discussion with someone on my Facebook about it, and I was telling them, no, that shit is wrong. That shit is sexual assault, because that's what it literally is, sexual assault. Also, by the way, this is not pedophilic. It's more or less the term is actually hebephilic. Pedophilic, if just so people will know, the pedophilic shit, it involves infants from like 1 to 10. Hebephilic involves from like 11 to 14, and since they was like 13 when they was getting topped off, that falls under hebephiles. So what Boosie was doing was hebephilic, not pedophilic, but that's neither here nor there. We like Father said, we need to have this conversation about sex and how we kind of look at sex, because as men, like you said, like the most people I knew was like having sex at like 15 in their teenage years, and I knew growing up in high school, I knew a lot of women like they had boyfriends, they was having sex. Next thing you know, they're teen moms and all that other stuff, and that I'm not gonna say it fucks up your life, but it really alters your life very differently when you're a teen mom. So it's just one of those things where you really be careful. I feel like we're not teaching our kids about sex. There's sexual education, but I feel like a lot of people don't really go deep into about sex or like the consequences of sex other than STDs, because I've learned STDs in health class. But other than STDs, but like pregnancies and like child support and all that other stuff, because I'm pretty sure if you teach your kids, especially young boys, if you teach them about the child support payments and how that shit go about, it will stop a lot of them from having sex. Not like some people will still do it and risk it, but I feel like that will stop a lot of people from having sex, or at least thinking twice before they have sex. And honestly, and I feel like a lot of people is missing this. It took two to tango. Boosie was wrong for paying the woman, but what grown woman you finding trying to top off some 13-year-olds? Like, I don't care how much money he pay you. That shit is like, whoever that woman was, need to be put up on charges too, because that shit is gross and that shit is disgusting. And we don't ever talk about, in my opinion, we don't ever talk about how there are older women that do prey on younger men. Like, especially like during the high school years, where like you got these teachers coming after these young men, and they're like, the teachers are having sex with the kids, and they're end up getting pregnant and all that stuff, trapping them. So we need to have a whole conversation about like sex, basically sex in general. And all this remind me of a Kendrick Lamar verse he said in Untitled 3, and it was talking about what the black man say, and it was basically, that whole verse was like how we put pussy on a pedestal, or like we put sex on a pedestal, and the one of the last lines, he was like, pussy is power, fuck on a new bitch every night, I wouldn't be proud, you should allow it, was basically like how some people, like what y'all been saying, how we looked at sex. It's like, if like someone like 16 has been having sex, we kind of like congratulate them. But if our daughters is having sex, we be up in arms.
Yeah.
So that's one, and this is coming from a man that said, I feel like some double standards are cool and some are not. This is one of the double standards I'm not cool with, because like a young man could like ruin his life getting someone pregnant, just like a young woman could get her life ruined by being pregnant and like left alone with the baby. What do y'all think? What do y'all think?
I mean, like, I definitely agree with you that like this is a double standard that's not okay at all. And but Tony actually brought up a good point where he was talking about how back in the younger days, like that's just it seemed like it was like the norm because there was a lot of these people that, you know, and like these are people that, you know, that was coming up, you know,